Yes, can you please stand up, say your name and where you're from?
Certainly. So, Rahul Bansali from West Hampstead. So, I'm really interested in hearing the panel's opinion on ensuring local views are heard on planning decisions. In West Hampstead, we have a fantastic neighbourhood development forum that was ratified in the referendum last summer, but really dismayed that the Labour-run Camden Council are no longer, just ruled that they're no longer going to be sending out letters to local residents when there's planning going to be happening right next door to them. Really interested in what people have to say, and maybe expand it to the point of view around general localism and how we're going to hear a voice back into City Hall.
Okay. I'm very happy to take that question, and that will be the last one on housing, and then I'm happy to take questions on other issues. Thank you, Rahul. Anybody like to respond?
Yes, so as a Liberal Democrat, it won't surprise you to know that I'm very pro-localism. Keith Moffat, who was the leader of Camden Council when it was a Liberal Democrat-led council, was instrumental in leading that referendum and knocking on doors and getting that passed.
No, it wasn't.
I think it's clear that we need to make sure...
No, it wasn't.
I think, for records there, sir. I think it's clear that we need to make sure that we're really listening to communities. And I don't mean that in a way as just kind of vaguely hearing what people's opinions are and then putting them on the back of a leaflet. I mean regularly knocking on people's doors and making sure we're actively going to people. And not just knocking on people's doors. I think we actually need to go into communities. So if we look at the Jewish community, for instance, I think we need our politicians to be embedded within that community so they really understand what the needs of people are. I think localism has to be the way forward, community has to be the way forward, not just for the Jewish community, but all our different communities across London.
Anybody else like to respond to that?
Yeah, okay. Yes, the Neighbourhood Development Forum is very good, very effective, and I'm in communication with them already about a number of issues, most recently the question of the tube station and the need for step-free access, and I'm very pleased that Sadiq Khan has indicated that one of the things he will do is require TfL to review that whole project to see if it can be made to happen. As far as planning is concerned, I'm not entirely sure the point about letters from Camden, but I think that they are mainly using email now. But I can tell you it doesn't really work very well in Barnet either. In Edgware, there's an application in for a 17-storey tower block next to the tube station, and Barnet's planning department consulted by letter only within 150 yards of the 17-storey tower block, although it be seen from miles away, and will have a huge impact on the local community for the whole ward, if not also into across the boundary into Harrow, and will also have a huge impact on the shops in the area. So it is a problem how you communicate, and I think we as politicians have got the responsibility to make sure that happens. And
what would you actually do instead of playing the opposite side?
In relation to the Edgware one, for example, I've got quite a large mailing list of people in Edgware myself, and I emailed out everybody and told them what was going on, and organised for people to put forward the objections if they want to. And indeed, I often, probably too often, end up appearing at planning committees in Barnet, making objections which are always overruled by the planning committee, except one where we're both on the same side, which was a record. But generally speaking, I'm afraid Barnet Council take no notice whatsoever of residents' objections. So I think part of the problem is the way this government has also changed planning law to make it harder to object, in that the presumption is now in favour of development, which makes it much harder to actually turn things over when they should be turned over. And the permitted development rights, which they brought in, are going to are already creating great devastation. They're going to make things even worse, because office blocks, like we've seen in Edgware and elsewhere in Camden as well, can be converted into housing without the need for planning permission and with no affordable housing requirement whatsoever either. And I think the government's decision to introduce these permitted development rights is appalling. It has a huge impact on our economy because it means that office blocks, light industrial and so on can all be converted with a huge loss of jobs, huge impact on the local economy, and no say for the planning authority whatsoever. And indeed, I think Barnet might even have turned it down, judging by the comments I received from the Environmental Health Department, had they had the power to do so.
To answer your question specifically, I think we should continue to write to neighbours about planning applications, because how else will you know? And if you don't, these days people don't always talk to their neighbours, so they might not be friends. Who knows? But I think we should write to people. We can't rely on emails. The council doesn't have the email address of every resident. and nor should it. But I think we should keep those letters. And in terms of consulting with people, the tower block in Edgeworth that's proposed, it is proposed to be right next to another tower block that's been there since the 1960s or 70s. I would actually see that tower block. I live in Edgware, and actually, do you know what? I'm not going to propose everything. I would be in favour of that particular planning application, because it will bring homes to the area, it will bring money to the area. The part of Edgware town where the block would be, it's a very Jewish area around there, people would know this. This is what I call the kosher end, which is very nice. And then there's another end near the high street. Unfortunately, that isn't so nice. And I think this particular development would step the other side of Edgware High Street up. It would bring it back up to the standard of the other side.
Are the developers, by any chance, Essential Living, the same developers who are behind 100 Avenue Road and
I don't know who they are.
By an American investment company who is nameless, and I've tried to find out something about them, and it's been impossible.
Okay, sorry, I don't know who the development firm is. I'm sorry, but it is a very good scheme. I have concerns about the height because it's a thin tower. They are allowed apparently to be higher. I think it should be a bit shorter than the existing block next door. But ultimately, we need homes, and if we're going to keep saying no to all these schemes, and they need to be sensitive, they can't be too high. We keep saying no all the time, nothing will get built. Prices will go up, and we'll just be where we are now with the problem. So we do need to say yes to responsible development, and we need to let neighbours know when something's being built.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you how it works in my street. We've got an email list of about 200 addresses in the street. We had an application go in the last few days for some changes to the pub, which were based on some false submissions that those got pounced on and discussed in the street email group. And I believe a planning officer is going around to see them early next week. So what am I saying here? You can't beat neighbourhood relationships. You've got to build them.
Can I say? Yeah. Daniel, I think, said something about supply and demand. When we come to talk about housing, it always seems to be that we talk about supplying more and more houses. And obviously there's going to come a point where we cannot go on with the supply side, so we have to address the demand. And the only way we can address the demand is to cut down the number of people who require these houses. Now, as long as we're bringing 300,000 extra people in a year, we are never, ever going to catch up. I've recently visited Colindale. Well, I've visited it more or less all the time, but the way that area has changed, I live in Hendon. I drive down Aerodrome Road. First you've got Beaufort Park, then there's the Graham Park estate that's being increased, then there's about a dozen blocks, or more, well, in fact more, probably about 20 blocks being built around the station, including an enormous ugly thing behind Colindale Station, but they've done nothing at all about the roads, nothing at all about the tube, and you just cannot go on cramming more and more people into a given amount of space. And when one of the, I think it was the gentleman at the end, said we've got plenty of brownfield sites, that may be true. But the point is that we haven't got the infrastructure. London is grinding to a halt. We haven't got the number of places in the hospitals, we haven't got the transport. People who actually live and have to catch public transport will tell you what a nightmare it is every day to be pushed in like cattle into trucks. And it's only going to get worse until we leave the EU and we can put a stop to unlimited immigration.
Thank you. Yes.